First question, Oscar, what's up?
What's up? Just give us your thoughts on another night in London, another loud crowd, all these sort of things we come to expect, but give us your thoughts and the feelings of the night.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, nice return to London. You know, I had a successful event in Manchester last year, so it's nice to get back. And it seems like this March date works out really well for our calendar. Nice to be back. We had a ton of our European broadcasters that came in to watch. I thought, the fights were great overall. Nice to see like a really just dominant performance by Brady. Really interesting. I didn't think it was going to go that way. And I guess neither did the crowd, but it was pretty impressive performance.
You mentioned the Manchester event last year. We had 2 UK events last year. Do you base we're going to come back once a year every time, right? But do you base a second one based on what's happening with UK fighters like Leon and stuff like that? Or can we guarantee a second event this year?
No, we don't base it on the fighters. This is like, a calendar set 6 to 9 months out. We're always trying to be in the UK twice a year. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Also driven by the other events that we want to do throughout Europe, throughout the Middle East, North Africa. But typically we enter every year trying to get to the UK twice.
Do you think we'll come back again this year?
It's possible, okay. Yeah.
And obviously, I don't know if you can speak to whether the fight's happening or not happening, but just in terms of Tom Aspinall being on screen for the crowd to see him, he had the little duck. What do you make about fighters who are able to capitalize on moments like that and sort of push the narrative that they're trying to tell forward?
I mean, I think it's good. I think, what Dana and the matchmakers are always doing is just letting fighters be themselves. And so if they want to jump into the narrative and continue to push it forward, it doesn't hurt. They're going to do whatever they want to do. They're not going to get, anyone telling them not to do that type of thing. What do I think? I think it's great. I mean, I think everyone's really interested in seeing this fight. I'm not sure when it's going to come together. I think Dana was dropping some hints earlier on this week that, news could be coming soon. But in terms of timing, nothing to mention right now.
And last one for me, obviously, she was a very important person to this region is Molly McCann, who announced her retirement tonight. Just your thoughts on having her as an ambassador for this region and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, I mean, she mentioned that, I think, at the end of her post-fight speech and her retirement speech, that she might want to play a role. And you look at some of the athletes that we've got in different areas around the world post their UFC fighting career and the impact that they make. I mean, there's no better example than Nogueira in Brazil. I mean, the guy is out there every week. He's building houses, he's raising money, he's doing clinics with underprivileged youth. I think there's a real role for a lot of athletes that come and have a successful career, either on a global basis or a local basis, and then they want to give back. They want to use the skills that they've got, the profile that they've built to make an impact on the community, to help, continue to build our brand. And oftentimes it comes in the form of teaching. They've been taught well, all these athletes have been taught well all their lives, and for them to now give back. So in terms of an ambassador role, I think during her career, couldn't have done much better, but the opportunity to now springboard into something that's more meaningful for the rest of her life, I think it's something that we really need to build around.
Just right there, a question for the French audience. With the position of Manon Fiorot with title shot and the ranking of Nassourdine and Cyril Gane as #1 contender, can we expect more than a fight night in France in a close future?
Like more than a fight night in terms of bringing a pay-per-view to France?
Yeah.
Or more than a fight night?
Pay-per-view, that's my question. Can we have a pay-per-view in a close future in France?
Yeah, we can. I mean, we've done a number of these pay-per-views either in the middle of the night. In certain circumstances, we've done them in local prime time. We talk extensively about the limitations that we've got to do pay-per-views in kind of traditional broadcast windows time for North America. It works obviously in Australia because it's a Sunday afternoon event. To do an event in Europe or the Middle East, pay-per-view that is more challenging for us. Having said that, we just talked about Manchester. So could we do it? Yes. We haven't looked into some of the limitations that we might have from a venue or like an ordinance perspective. Sometimes you just can't get a permit. You need to think about transportation. There's a lot of things that go into being able to have an event, a pay-per-view event in the middle of the night. So I think, and someone keep me honest here, but the main card in Manchester last summer, I think, was at 3 a.m. So the main fight didn't really walk till 5:30. Can you do that in Paris? I'm not sure if we've even asked the question. If that's the case, we might, right? It's been big gates, always sold out. 3 events in a row with, arguably one of the most raucous crowds that we've got. Menon's competing in Montreal. Yeah. hope to see Benoit Saint-Denis come back at some point soon. So could you fill it with the necessary athletes to sell enough tickets in the middle of the night at a pay-per-view average ticket price? I think you could.
Okay. Thank you. Last one for me. Without saying names, there is possibility to have a new French fighter in the UFC this year?
Oui, absolument.
Merci.
Ouais.
Just here, staying on the theme of Europe,
Yes, sir.
I know that the Czech Republic and Germany, they have a lot of talent. Obviously, Europe, Prohaska's on a great run. They're dying for a UFC event, not a pay-per-view, but a fight night, something. And you mentioned plans to potentially go to those scenes. Is there any movement for potentially 2025 or 2026? Anything that fans can get excited for?
Yeah, so not in 25, but 26.
And I don't know if you've seen with the promotion named Octagon, but they sell out football stadiums and all over these massive arenas like the UFC do. Do the UFC see that and think, okay, we can hit these European cities as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely encouraging. We've heard a lot about the Octagon situation being, I think they broadcast events on RTL. We just renewed our deal with DAZN in Germany, and they talked a lot about, growth of the sport and citing what Octagon has been doing, which I think is great. So what does it do for us? Obviously, it helps generate a number of local athletes, and so the pipeline is stronger for athletes in those particular regions. Galvanizes a fan base, helps make broadcast and media values increase, and it shows that there's demand from a ticket sales perspective. So for us, extremely encouraging, which is why I mentioned not 25 but 26 as the next likely window that we'd consider going. And that's partly to do with the broadcast situation that we've got in the U.S. and I think I've talked about that quite a bit in the past.
Right here. Hello. Good evening. We were talking about some events in France and in Prague or some places from Europe. I was wondering, due to it's going to be difficult to have an event in Spain this year, is probably a goal for you to go to Spain next year?
Yeah, Dana's talked about that quite a bit. I think here's the situation with Spain. We've got to fight the right destination. And we've talked about it a lot. Like, we're not going to venues that don't have a roof. It doesn't make any sense for our athletes, for the product, for the integrity of the product. We want, the level playing field to be equal and not have the same kind of weather variables that you'd have in football or soccer or golf or whatever else. So challenging for us. If there's a venue that we can go to, then we'll continue to look at Spain. Having said that, there's very strong interest on Dana's front, so we've just got to figure out where to go.
And the last one, obviously, Dana has talked before that maybe in a couple of weeks we got some news from Ilya Topuria's next fight.
Yeah, I mean, he's all over social right now. It's
new
era, new persona. I'm not sure what he's got cooking up, but it sounds like he's got something interesting.
Yeah. Do you think that we could guess who are the 3 fights that maybe they are thinking about for Ilya?
I don't know, man.
Thank you.
Not up to me. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sure they've got a long list of guys. I'm sure he's got a long list of guys, right? I think if he's got a formula that he's bringing to market and he's already publicizing pretty heavily, I'm sure it's not just about him. I'm sure it's about the pathway he wants to, what weight class, what belt, and what he wants to achieve in this new chapter of his.
Thank you.
Dave, down here
Yes,
in the
sir.
middle. When Oscar raised the possibility of 2 UK events there, you said that North Africa is also factoring into your decision making. Is that on the cards for maybe this year or late next year?
Yeah, so we've got as you guys all know, we've got a pretty extensive relationship with the Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi, and the way that we sort of manage our relationship with them is the perspective is not just Abu Dhabi. Like, the perspective is the region, and the region is Middle East, North Africa, and so. In working with them, there's a number of different countries that we've identified as destinations for us over the next few years. We've really been Abu Dhabi and we've been Riyadh. So those are sort of the 2 so far. But, we've been thinking about Bahrain, we've been thinking about Qatar, we've been thinking about Jordan, we've been thinking about a few different countries. There's an order of operations to it. So when it comes to North Africa specifically, nothing to disclose at the moment, but You know, I think continental Africa for us is really compelling, and we've been talking for a while about whether it's South Africa or Rwanda, or do we go to, you know, French-speaking country. So there's a few different options. You know, there's a lot at play. There's a lot of logistics at play. We've got to have the right athletes. So, you know, nothing to report right now, but that's the way that we're thinking about it.
And for you personally, how much do you want to get that over the line? Because I know I've spoken to you about an African event for like maybe the last 5-6 years. So,
Yeah.
Personally, how much do you want to deliver that?
It's a massive priority. I mean, there's so much excitement unlocking new markets, right? And you don't get to do it that often. We did it a few years ago in France, and it's been such a great ride. There's a few other countries that we are trying to get to this year, and hopefully in the next few weeks we've got some announcements. But it's a really special moment, right? Because there's obviously the pent-up demand. There's this whole concept of like giving back to the fans that have been asking for it for a while. So I think for us it's really meaningful, and then you've got athletes who invariably are saying, okay, you got to come to my country, and here's how we can make it work. We've got connections with the government. Here are sponsors that you guys can reach out to. And so the best advocates in many cases are the athletes. And so that the athletes play a major role in that. For me personally, and for, you know, the incredible teams that the UFC has in 7 different offices that we've got around the world, it's important to them too. It's something we're really pushing for, but it's not, you know, it's not as easy as trying to book the O2 or trying to get back to Bercy Arena, Arena Accor in Paris.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Back here. Hi.
Hello.
PFL star Dakota Dichiva was in the crowd tonight, and I think some fans were getting quite excited about that.
Sorry, which athlete?
Dakota Dichiva. She was in the crowd. People were getting excited about potentially linking up with the UFC. Is that premature? Is she just here as an observer, or is that something we can get excited about?
I wish I had more info for you. I really don't know.
No, it is. And last question from me. In the past few weeks, the UFC have reverted back to the old gloves, and there's been kind of an increase in eye pokes, and it's been more of a news topic. Is the plan to stick with these gloves?
Yes.
Even though they were rolled, you know, the new gloves were created for a reason, the plan is to revert back with these, and just eye pokes are just part of the cause, part of the game.
I mean, I think Dana, Sean, Mick, Hunter, they spoke to a lot of different athletes, and everyone seems to want to go back to the old gloves. So for now, that's the plan. Until it's not, and there'll be other gloves. But I think for now, we're going to continue to roll with those.
Dave, over here.
Yes, sir.
We've heard a lot of places, Middle East, in Europe. So I'm from the Netherlands, and you have been in the Netherlands for one time in Rotterdam.
Twice, I think. Twice in Rotterdam.
Twice Rotterdam.
Yeah.
Twice then. When can we see another possibility in the Netherlands? With Reinier, we now have a guy who's on a tear. And maybe he will fight Bo Nickel again. When he fights Bo Nickel, he will win. We get something more. Are there any talks about the Netherlands?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 2 events, I think the 2 events that we've had in Rotterdam have been excellent. Amsterdam's always tough, challenging because the permitting process in Amsterdam is really onerous. It's very difficult for us to get a permit, if you can believe it. So back to the question that this gentleman asked earlier. You know, the concept for us in 25, likely not a possibility. 26, you know, we're confident that, you know, as we go through the U.S. media rights deal, and we've got a new set of terms with either our current partner in ESPN or whoever, you know, is interested in partnering with us in the U.S. and potentially other countries around the world. The intention, and we're being very deliberate about this, is to have an increased number of primetime events that we can have throughout Europe and Middle East, and China for that matter, every year. So there's limitations on what we can do now, and the intention for us is to make sure that we've got a higher sort of ceiling on the number of events, a greater number of events that we can do in primetime. And that's when we'll be able to think about Germany and getting back to Prague, and of course, Netherlands.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Hi.
Dave, hello. Dave, so Joanna Jędrzejczyk, former UFC champion, UFC Hall of Famer, became a sports manager. And I would like to ask you if you are aware of some contract signs, new contract signs of Polish guys that she represents, like Kuba Wikłacz or Robert Ruchała. And can you tell us something about it, or don't you know?
I wish I could. I don't know anything about it. Yeah, and I apologize. I mean, listen, if Dana was here and he'd be able to answer all these questions about athletes, but those types of details, are always really coming from him.
Of course. Last one from me. What UFC thinks about this new idea of Conor McGregor to become an Irish president?
Or the Prime Minister of Ireland? Is that what is that
Or a
fair?
president, I think.
I don't know. Prime Minister.
Thank you.
I don't know. I'm not really sure what to say about that one. I think he'd do a great job. He seems pretty passionate. He had a very impassioned speech at the White House. He raised a number of very important topics. And let's just see, I mean, I know he's like pushing for the, this is the ultimate democracy. So let's see what the people think. And maybe Oscar's the better person to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, over there, over here. Hello, to your left.
Hello.
Hi. So it's been 8 years since last UFC event in Poland, and the Polish media are asking this question every year. But let me rephrase it: what is the biggest problem or challenge to come back to Poland? Is it building a right fight card, or is it because the possible gate will be probably lower than in the West, like in France or here in England?
Yeah, but I think we've had some pretty successful gates. We've had a number of successful events. There's no shortage of athletes. There's also a number of destinations we go to. I feel like I'm being a bit repetitive, and I apologize, but similar answer to a couple of the other questions. If we've got a limitation on how many events that we can do in prime time, and we don't really want to do middle of the night events. Paris, London, some of the destinations where we've either got an increased number of athletes, we've got our teams here, we've got major media deals. Those typically are higher priority destinations, and it's like London's a destination for us. I mean, I can't remember the last time we've done a press conference with this many media, right? So you guys have traveled from many different places to be here. We were trying to get the number of tickets sold outside of the UK for tonight. I couldn't get it before here, but guaranteed that a significant number were outside of the UK. It's a destination that's easy for people to come to, and so it makes it easier to sell tickets. We've got a really healthy relationship with Polsat and a number of other partners in Poland. And again, it'll be on the list for 26 and beyond. Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. My question will be also about the location, but not the tournament, but a fighter. Recently, there were rumors that Khamzat Chimaev might have his next fight in the United States. So, if you're aware about it, has his problem, which prevented him from coming to the US for tournament in the past, been solved yet?
I don't know. Let's turn off my phone. Yes, I'm not sure how to answer that. I don't have an answer for you. All right. Guys, thank you very much. Appreciate all the support this week.